Good afternoon. We welcome you to the Seaport and Rail Yard Areas Emissions Reduction Program webinar. My name is Delia Range, and I will be explaining the program and requirements, and later in the presentation, my colleague Patricia Contreras will discuss an overview on how to fill out the application. Some housekeeping items before we begin. Our webinar has been pre-recorded, and today's PowerPoint presentation will be posted at a later date on the SPRY program webpage. The question and answer portion of our webinar will not be recorded during the presentation. Your microphones, cameras, and the chat function will be disabled. At the end of the presentation, we will have time to address your questions. At that time, your microphones will be enabled and you can use the raise hand function, and we will call on you to unmute yourself to ask your question. If you have a question referring to a particular slide, please make a note of the slide number so we can go back to it when we go over the answer. We will also be utilizing the question and answer function. To submit a question, click on the Q&A icon at the top of your screen. Staff will be monitoring and responding to the posted questions throughout the webinar. You will need to click on Show Comment to see the answers. This presentation is meant to be a high-level overview of the SPRY program and its requirements. Applicants should review the Request for Grant Applications, also called the RFGA, for application and project requirements. So with that, let's get started. The SPRY program provides grants to replace or repower older drayage trucks and cargo handling equipment to help reduce NOx emissions and improve the air quality in Texas. In this webinar, we will cover the program highlights, the requirements, grant amounts, eligible expenses, and how to submit the application. We will also cover reimbursement, disposition, usage, and reporting. The information I cover in this part of the webinar can be found in the RFGA, and this webinar will be posted to the SPRY webpage once the program opens. I encourage you all to join us for the entire presentation, since there have been changes to the SPRY webpage and application process since the last grant round. This grant round will be opening in early August 2026 and closing March 2027. The available funding is approximately $24 million. Funding is available in the eligible counties for equipment replacement and repower projects. Awards are on a first-come, first-served basis or until all available funds have been awarded. Grants may reimburse up to 80% of the eligible cost. Later in this webinar, we will go over the ineligible cost. Eligible applicants must have operated an owned or leased drayage truck or piece of cargo handling equipment at one or more of the eligible seaports or rail yards for a minimum of 200 days per year for the 2 years preceding the application signature date. On-road vehicles must have been continuously registered for the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. The seaports and rail yards eligible for the SPRY program include those located in the air quality non-attainment areas of Texas. An eligible seaport is a publicly or privately owned property associated with the primary movement of cargo or materials from ocean-going vessels or barges to shore or vice versa, including structures and property devoted to receiving, handling, holding, consolidating, and loading or delivery of waterborne shipments. An eligible rail yard is a rail facility where cargo is routinely transferred from a drayage truck to a train or vice versa, including structures that are devoted to receiving, handling, holding, consolidating, and loading or delivery of rail-borne cargo. If an applicant cannot determine the eligibility of the seaport, including facilities located in a ship channel security district or rail yard, or believes that a seaport or rail yard is eligible and not included on the list, the applicant should contact TERP staff at terp@tceq.texas.gov or by calling 1-800-919-TERP. TCEQ will review this information and, if eligible, will include the seaport or rail yard on the eligible seaports and rail yards list published on the SPRY webpage. This is a map of all the eligible counties for the locations of seaports and rail yards. The eligible counties are highlighted in yellow. This map is in the RFGA and will be posted to the webpage once the program opens. Replacement of a drayage truck or cargo handling equipment with a newer model or the repower of a drayage truck or cargo handling equipment are the two activities eligible for funding in the SPRY program. For both replacement and repower, the heavy-duty vehicle must have a GVWR over 26,000 pounds. Specific types of drayage trucks and cargo handling equipment eligible for replacement or repower projects for the SPRY program include those listed in the fiscal year 2026 grant tables provided on the SPRY webpage once the program opens. For replacement projects, the applicant must have continuously owned or leased the drayage truck or cargo handling equipment being replaced at the time of the application submittal and have been listed as the owner on ownership documents or the lessee on the lease agreement for the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. For repower projects, the applicant must have owned and been listed as the owner on ownership documents for the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. TCEQ may consider a request to waive the ownership requirements if the applicant has not continuously owned or leased the equipment for the 2 years immediately preceding the application due to one or more of these scenarios: if the ownership of the company has changed, if the assets of the company have been purchased by another company, and if the company has changed its name or incorporation status. Submission of a waiver request is not a guarantee of acceptance. TCEQ will review all waiver requests on a case-by-case basis. Waiver requests are for replacement projects only and must be completed and submitted along with the application to be considered. Applicants must complete and submit the supplemental Form 1 with the application. TCEQ will review these waiver requests on a case-by-case basis. The drayage truck or cargo handling equipment must have been used in its primary function in the routine operations of the applicant in Texas for the 2 years preceding the application signature date. The drayage truck or cargo handling equipment must currently be used in its primary function in the routine operations of the applicant and be capable of performing its primary function for the same duration as the proposed activity life. The activity life is 5 years. The applicant must have operated the drayage truck or cargo handling equipment in one or more of the eligible seaports or rail yards for at least 200 days per year for the 2 years preceding the application signature date. Unless the vocational type of drayage truck or cargo handling equipment is exempt from registration requirements, the equipment must be registered for operation in Texas and must have been registered in Texas for the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. TCEQ may consider a request to waive the 2-year registration requirement if the vocational type of an on-road drayage truck is exempt from inspection and registration requirements, such as an on-road vehicle that is used as a non-road yard truck. A portion registration for operation in several states will not normally be accepted as proof of the continuous registration and operation in Texas unless the applicant can document that at least 55% of the vehicle operation occurred in Texas over the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. Applicants with a portion registration are required to document mileage in Texas and out of state for the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date. Applicants are required to upload supporting documentation with their application submission. Acceptable usage documentation may include the individual vehicle distance records, IVDR, required under the International Registration Plan, IRP, and other similar travel records. Drayage trucks and cargo handling equipment eligible for purchase to replace existing drayage trucks or cargo handling equipment under the program must be either powered by an electric motor or contain an engine that is certified to the current federal emission standards applicable to that type of engine as determined by TCEQ. The new equipment must emit at least 25% less NOx than the engine of the drayage truck or cargo handling equipment being replaced, and have an equipment model year for on-road or engine model year for non-road no more than 3 years older than the calendar year in which it was purchased. For eligibility, the purchase for repowering drayage trucks or cargo handling equipment under this program, the engine or motor must be powered by electricity or be an engine certified to the current federal emission standards applicable to that type of engine as determined by TCEQ and emit NOx at a rate that is at least 25% less than the emissions rate of the engine on the equipment being replaced. All grant-funded equipment with the SPRY program must operate at one or more of the eligible seaports or rail yards a minimum of 200 days per every 12-month period throughout the 5-year activity life. The usage commitment is the percentage of time you are operating the new equipment in the eligible usage areas, and grant recipients agree to operate the new equipment annually at least 50% or 80% of the time in the non-attainment and affected counties. This slide shows the non-attainment areas where a grant recipient must operate the grant-funded drayage truck or other cargo handling equipment. This map will be on the SPRY webpage and in the RFGA once the program opens. If you receive a grant, you may be eligible for reimbursement of up to 80% of the eligible costs that are associated with the replacement or repower. The amount cannot exceed the maximum grant amount for the equipment listed in the eligible grant amount tables. Those tables will be on the SPRY webpage once the program opens. The ineligible costs for projects are any costs paid prior to the opening date of the grant round, insurance premiums, administrative costs, and other internal costs to the grantee, including but not limited to personnel expenses, internal salaries, indirect costs, travel costs, consultant fees for the preparation of a grant application and administration of the grant, and finance fees and charges. Other ineligible costs are food and drink, and costs that do not involve an arm's length transaction, such as the use of existing inventory without a proof of purchase, equipment manufactured by the grantee, or a transaction between affiliated companies. Grant amounts will be reduced by value of any existing financial incentives that directly reduce the cost of the proposed project. This includes tax credits or deductions, other grants, or any other public financial assistance. For an application to be considered, it must be received by TCEQ no later than 5 p.m. Central Time on the application deadline and as long as funds are available. The deadline information is listed on the RFGA cover page. Each attachment must be grouped and clearly labeled for each activity, with the activity number labeled at the top of each page. If you have multiple activities in different project categories, usage type, and/or operating in different primary areas, you will need to submit separate applications. For example, you cannot have on-road and non-road equipment on the same application. They require separate applications. Replacement and repower projects cannot be on the same application either. They will require separate applications as well. If the activities are all in different areas, a separate application for each area will need to be submitted. This is the list of required documents that must be submitted with the application. The W-9 can be downloaded, filled out completely, and then signed. A link to this form will also be available on the SPRY webpage once we officially open. If you are an individual or sole proprietor, please provide a copy of your state or federal identification card. We will also need a copy of the current title for proof of ownership or a lease agreement, and registration documentation for the 12 months prior to the application signature date for all on-road equipment. There cannot be a gap in registration for a period of more than 30 days. Color photographs of the equipment and engine being replaced are required for all replacement projects. For each vehicle or piece of equipment, please include photos of the front, rear, right side, left side, including the tires, and photos of the engine and engine data plates and/or any other stickers with vehicle information. The view of each photo should be straight on and not angled. This slide and the next 3 slides are examples of how your photos should be taken. They are clear and focused and taken straight on, not angled. These side view photos are also clear and focused. Please provide photos of the engine from the left side and right side of the vehicle. These data plates and stickers are very important. Please ensure that the information is legible in the photos. If you cannot capture all of the data in one photo, it is acceptable to provide multiple photos. If these stickers and plates are not available, please provide a photo of where the sticker used to be. If the data plates are no longer available, you may submit a diagnostic report which shows the engine model, year, serial number, engine family code, etc. Please note that in this example photo, we have redacted the serial number for privacy. The goal is to be able to verify this information. Beginning this grant round, we have a new application process. It is called SUNS, and it is completely online. Later in this presentation, we will have step-by-step instructions on how to create your profile and submit your application. This will be the only way to submit your application, as we will not be accepting them by regular mail, express mail, email, fax, or drop-off at our office in Austin. If your project is selected for award, TCEQ will email you a contract to sign and return. Be sure to review the expected usage commitment in the contract. This is what you will be held to for the life of the activity, which is 5 years. The approved activities will be represented in the contract scope of work. Grant recipients commit to taking all actions necessary to ensure the successful completion and subsequent operation of the new drayage truck or cargo handling equipment within the contract's timeframes and funding limitations. Payments will be made on a reimbursement basis for eligible cost paid in full by the grantee, minus the scrap value and any incentives. Grantees will be required to provide documentation in accordance with the contract to show that the grant-funded equipment has been received and costs have been paid in full before reimbursement will be provided. All costs must be paid in full by the grantee. The request for reimbursement must be submitted to TCEQ by the request for reimbursement deadline. If the grant-funded equipment is financed, the reimbursement will be assigned to the company that provided the financing. If the grant-funded vehicles or equipment are leased, the lease must have a term sufficient to extend to the end of the activity life or have a binding commitment to purchase. TCEQ may advance funds to grantees who are governmental entities on a case-by-case basis. Equipment and engines being replaced or repowered must be destroyed and rendered permanently inoperable within 90 days of TCEQ issuing the reimbursement payment. The structural damage to the equipment and engines must be such that repairs are not possible. Standard disposition means completely crushing the equipment and engine, or making a 3-inch or larger hole in the engine block on both sides and cutting the frame rails or other main structural components of the equipment in half. Keep in mind, every disposition is verified by TERP staff through photos, documents, and possibly a site visit. TCEQ may consider alternative methods of rendering the equipment and engines permanently inoperable in lieu of the standard method of disposition. The applicant must provide a detailed written explanation of the proposed alternative method of disposition. If approved, TCEQ will include the alternative disposition method in the special conditions of the contract. If TCEQ does not approve the proposed alternative disposition, the grantee must follow the requirements for the standard disposition. The contract that you receive will include specific measures to take for the disposition of the equipment and engines being replaced and for submitting disposition verification to TCEQ. The grantee must provide a certificate of disposition of the equipment and engine being replaced on forms provided by TCEQ. You can find these forms on the TERP website under Current Grantees. To provide verification of disposition for titled equipment, grant recipients must also submit a copy of the Texas Non-Repairable Vehicle Title issued by the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. This information can be found in the RFGA. Lastly, failure to comply with the disposition requirements may result in the termination of the contract and the return of the grant funds. The applicant agrees to operate the grant-funded vehicles or equipment for the life of the activity, which is 5 years. The activity life begins on the day TCEQ approves the disposition. If you are awarded a grant, you will be required to submit usage annual reports. TCEQ will notify the grantee in writing upon the end of the activity life. The grantee agrees to maintain the grant-funded equipment in proper operating condition, to have sufficient commercial insurance to protect against loss, theft, damage, and liability, and to maintain records regarding the operation of the grant-funded equipment for 4 years after the termination of the contract. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Now I will turn it over to Trish, who will show you how to create your profile in the SUNS application portal and how to submit an application. Trish?
Thank you, Delia. Good afternoon. My name is Patricia, and I will be showing you how to create and submit your application using our new online application system called SUNS. When the program opens, you will apply using the TERP Online SUNS link that can be found under Step 5 on the SPRY program website, along with a link for a step-by-step guide on how to submit your application and documentation. Please note that we will no longer be using downloadable PDF applications. Also, it is highly recommended to use a laptop or desktop computer to submit your application. As a reminder, we will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. Please make sure to write down the slide number if you would like us to reference a certain part of the presentation. The SUNS welcome screen will ask for your first name, last name, and email address as your login credentials. Please make sure to click the box that you agree to the terms and conditions prior to clicking on the login button. If someone other than third-party preparers are completing an application for an authorized official, or AO, they will need to share their credentials with the AO so they can review and sign the application. This screen will appear once you have entered your name and email address. As shown here, make sure to click the bottom link for the Texas Emissions Reduction Plan. Another screen will pop up where you will click on the new TERP Activity button. On this screen, you will select Seaport and Rail Yard Areas Emissions Reduction Program SPRY application, followed by clicking on the Next button. At this stage, you will key in a secure password of your choosing, followed by clicking on Next. It is extremely important that you write down and remember this password. This password will play a key role in your ability to access your application in the future. If you forget your password, a new application must be created. If a third party is preparing your application, they must supply you with the password used. There is only one password per application for both the applicant and third-party preparer. Once you have created your password, your application will be assigned a reference number. Make sure to write down your reference number along with your password. This number will be used if you are entering more than one application, making edits to an existing application, or signing an application. You will then click on the Next button to advance to the next screen. Before we begin entering information into the application, the next few slides will help you with navigating through the process. In order to edit an application that is already in progress, click on the paper pen icon below Edit in the menu bar. You will be prompted to enter the password you set when you first created the application, followed by clicking on the Next button. Here you will see some of the common error messages that you may encounter as you are completing the application. Yellow warning messages indicate that something may be wrong. Check your entry, and if nothing is wrong, proceed with the application. Blue warning messages indicate the mailing address has been modified to match USPS validation. Red error messages indicate that an entry must be corrected before you can continue. And red asterisks indicate mandatory questions that you must answer. The navigation pane on the left side of the screen shows you the sections that have been completed as well as the sections that are not completed. Please note that the sections must be completed in the order they are listed. You will not be able to jump forward or skip sections. This is very useful if you need to step away and resume later. Please be sure to complete the section which you are in before you save your application, if you need to step away. The application will automatically time out after 15 minutes of inactivity, and you will lose any progress on your current section if it is incomplete. As you move through the application, additional sections may appear in the navigation pane depending on the answers you provide along the way. If you do need to go back to the previous sections at some point, you can click on the section title in the navigation pane. In the SPRY grant eligibility criteria section is where you will begin to answer questions related to your vehicle or equipment operation and initial terms for the next 5 years if awarded a grant. You will also have a first glimpse of blue text and red asterisks. Throughout the application process, you will notice questions with blue text, a red asterisk, and/or a question mark in a dark circle. The blue text is a guidance statement and/or useful link, and by clicking on the question mark in the dark circle prior to a question number, will open a box with additional information. Please read all text carefully prior to answering any question. In the applicant information section, please use capital letters when appropriate. Do not use all capital letters unless you are entering a vehicle identification number, serial number, engine number, or engine family code. When entering the applicant information, the applicant's legal name and employer identification number or social security number must match the W-9 form that you will submit later in the process. If you are a Texas corporation, you will be required to enter in your Texas filing charter number. In this area of the applicant information section, you will provide certification regarding child support obligations. This ensures that you, company partners, etc., are eligible to receive a state-funded grant. Please read the information carefully and select the proper applicant option from the drop-down menu. If you do not agree to the certification or have a question, please contact us immediately. Finally, if a third-party preparer was enlisted to prepare an application on behalf of an applicant, the third-party preparer must select Yes before proceeding. Note that both parties must sign the application before it can be submitted. Once the third-party preparer completes and signs the application, an email will be sent to the authorized official. The authorized official will need the reference number and password to access and review the application. Third-party preparers must ensure they send the correct reference number and password to the authorized official. Once the authorized official signs the application will be submitted and the applicant will receive an email containing a confirmation number. Remember to add this confirmation number to your reference number and password list. In the Application General Information section, you will first choose the appropriate project type, meaning replacement or repower, the appropriate project emission source, meaning on-road or non-road, based on the eligible type of vehicle or equipment, respectively. Please note that it is only one emission source per application. If you have multiple emission sources, you must group them separately with a maximum of 10 activities per application. Finally, you will choose the appropriate project fuel type, meaning the fuel type of the new vehicle or equipment to be purchased. After providing a detailed business description, it is recommended that the applicant review the map of eligible counties in Appendix A of the RFGA to make sure that their area of operation is in one or more of the eligible counties. Select Yes for the question regarding the unit of measurement and percent of annual operation if the operation of the grant-funded equipment will be the same for all activities. If you select No, then you will have to select your eligible area and percentage of annual usage for each individual activity listed later in the application. The activity unit of measurement is auto-populated when the project emission source is selected. You will see either miles for on-road or hours for non-road. If you do select Yes, you will select your eligible area from the left side of the table and use the top arrow in the center to move it over to the right side of the table. Make sure your county or counties of operation appears in the list of counties highlighted in blue. Enter the percent of annual operation in the space provided. The same process applies if you have more than one eligible area you are accounting for. Please note that the total percentage in eligible areas must be 50% or greater and will be auto-populated based on your input. If your county of operation is not listed in any of the eligible areas, check to see if your county is one of the 6 counties listed under Other. If it is, you will select Other from the table on the left and move it to the table on the right. You will then enter the percentage in Other area and then select your county from the drop-down list under Other County. Again, it is recommended that you refer to the map of eligible counties in Appendix A of the RFGA. Once you have arrived at the SPRY Equipment and Activity Certification section, you will find some guidance statements and useful links, along with a series of certifications that you must agree to before moving forward in the application. All certification statements must be reviewed by the authorized official. Please note, a few of the certifications have different or optional responses to select from. In this section, applicants can indicate that they are requesting a waiver for ownership or registration requirements. Applicants must also agree to all administrative and state contracting certifications in the next section, which means the applicant is certifying their compliance with the listed statements. As mentioned previously, a few of the certifications have different responses to select from. For example, within the Administrative and State Contracting Certifications section is a question that pertains to the contracting with an executive of a state agency. If you select Applies in this instance, you will be required to provide further information to proceed with your application. In the Authorized Official Contact section, make sure that all entries are spelled correctly, especially the AO's first name, last name, and email address. The AO will use their first and last name and their email address to log into SUNS. If awarded a grant, this information will also appear in the contract. The contract will be emailed to the AO using the email address listed in this section. If you get a yellow warning message on the mailing address, check to make sure it is entered incorrectly and proceed. The Designated Project Representative, or DPR, is the person who we will contact for application questions and/or missing documentation. If the AO and DPR are the same person, select AO Contact and AO Mailing from the two Same as Another Contact drop-down lists, respectively. This will automatically copy over the AO's information for this section. This section will only appear if you select a yes to the third-party preparer question at the beginning of the application in the applicant information section. The third-party preparer must enter in all their own requested information. In this section, you will enter the number of activities for the application. The total number can be anywhere from 1 to 10. If you have more than 10 activities, you will need to submit more than one application. If there is more than one activity, please remember that they must be the same project type, emission source, and fuel type. As a reminder, please only use capital letters when entering a vehicle identification number, serial number, engine number, or engine family code. When entering an activity for the old vehicle or equipment, you will need to enter all the information into the required fields. For on-road projects, make sure to enter the full 17-digit vehicle identification number. SUNS will auto-populate the make, model, and year. For non-road projects, enter the full equipment ID. You will then enter either the vehicle's registered weight or the equipment's horsepower, followed by all the required engine information. Be sure to read all the blue text with each question. Applicants must meet the 2-year requirement for ownership, registration, and operation in Texas. Registration requirements only apply to on-road vehicles. Applicants not meeting the 2-year requirements may request a waiver if they can demonstrate good cause. Waiver requests must be submitted at the time of application and will be considered on a case-by-case basis. The new vehicle or equipment type will automatically populate to match the old vehicle or equipment type. Double-check all is correct and enter the rest of the information into the required fields. Applicants operating vehicles under apportioned registrations must provide annual mileage in Texas and annual mileage outside of Texas for the 2-year period prior to the application signature date. Additionally, supporting documentation must be uploaded to the activity attachment section. Refer to the RFGA for more information. With replacement projects, applicants must select the method of disposition that will be used to dispose of the old vehicle or equipment and its engine. If an alternative disposition is selected, you will be required to describe in detail your proposed method to render the old vehicle or equipment and engine permanently inoperable. The requested grant amount will automatically populate based on the old and new vehicle or equipment provided in the application. Applicants can access the SPRY grant amount lookup tool for more information on how the grant amounts are determined by clicking on the question mark and the dark circle prior to the question number. In the attachments section, you will upload photos of your old vehicle or equipment, as well as other required supporting documents, such as ownership documentation. You will also upload any waiver requests and supporting documentation for apportioned registrations. We strongly encourage all applicants to click on the application photograph submission guidance link located at the top of the section to see examples of acceptable and unacceptable photos. This is a time saver for you and the staff reviewing your application. Here in the SPRY Annual Days of Operation section, you will enter in the number of days of operation for the old equipment operated in an eligible terminal, facility, or rail yard. To be eligible, the minimum is 200 days per year for the past 2 years. You will then select the appropriate seaports and/or rail yards, followed by the terminals you have visited in the past 2 years. You will first select the seaport and/or rail yard in the available column. Click on the top arrow in the center, and it will move your selection into the selection column. You will follow the same steps to add the terminal. In the TERP attachment section, applicants must upload all the required documents, starting with the IRS Form W-9. Depending on your project type and the related questions you answered while completing your application, you may have to upload additional supporting documentation in this section. All TERP attachments listed in this section are required and marked with a red asterisk. Please pay close attention to the blue text and refer to the RFGA for additional information. This section allows the applicant an opportunity to provide any additional project information that was not already covered in the application. If you are a third-party preparer, this flowchart describes the process when submitting an application on behalf of your client. Please note the last 3 steps indicate how the authorized official will complete submission of the application. Once you have completed entering in all the required information into the application, you can now return to the Activities page to see if the application status has changed, which you will find at the top of the page stating that the application is now ready to be signed. Next, you will check mark the box below the Select box and click Sign. It is important to note for people completing an application for an authorized official, besides third-party preparers, that when an application is ready for the authorized official to review and sign, like it shows in this slide, you will need to use your login credentials so the authorized official can sign it. This section will appear if there is a third-party preparer, and they should take the opportunity to view and print the application, also known as a copy of record. The third-party preparer will electronically sign off first by checkmarking the 2 certification statements, enter their name exactly as it appears in the application, and then click the Electronically Sign Your Application button. The application will be submitted to the authorized official by email. The third-party preparer will need to share the application password for the authorized official to sign and submit the application. The third-party preparer will receive an email confirming the application was signed and now ready for the authorized official's signature and submission. The authorized official will be the last to sign and submit the application. It is highly recommended that the authorized official views and prints the application at this time. The authorized official will check mark the 3 certifications, enter their name exactly as it appears in the application, and finally, click the Electronically Sign Your Application button, which in turn submits it to TCEQ. This page will be the last opportunity to view and print the application to a PDF and save it onto your computer for future reference, as it will no longer be available to you. Also, please add your confirmation number as indicated by the arrow to your list containing your password and reference number. After the authorized official signs the application, SUNS will automatically send an email to confirm submission of the application. The authorized official will receive an automated email confirming the application is now under review by program staff. This concludes the application instructions portion of today's webinar. For the future, the best way to know when a TERP program opens and hosting a webinar is to sign up for our email updates. Go to terpgrants.org. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a subscribe button. Click this button and follow the directions. I will now turn it back over to Delia for the question and answer segment. Delia?
Thank you, Trish. We will now open the floor to questions. Your microphones will now be enabled. If you have a question, we ask that you use the raise your hand icon at the top of your screen and wait to be called on. Once you are called on, please unmute your mic so we can hear you. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your interest in the program.